Hey guys, it's Carly.
Hey, it's Shamina. And
And we're
we're
emotional.
emotional.
Oh my goodness.
That was bad.
Yeah, that was bad. Anyways, so this is just me and Shamina. We're gonna get together and give you guys an update. But first, let's see how Shamina's week has been.
Let's see. My week has been good. My cat's trying to get in the closet right now, and I'm watching to see if she's gonna be able to do it, but I don't know if she will. My week's been good, just being able to focus on me and trying to communicate with other people more has been a nice challenge. Let's see what else we have. I think I talked about how we had another stray cat have kittens. And so these kittens, we are socializing them more. So I've been able to like interact with them more. The mom has seen me and is like, you're not a threat, you can handle them. So I'm very excited to be able to get these little kitties a home and
Yeah, yours.
maybe mine, yes. So it hasn't been nothing too terribly exciting, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Carly?
Well, I feel like my telling y'all about my week is like giving you guys my update. So I think like maybe should I just dive in?
Yes.
Um, I feel like it's been a couple weeks. I think it's been a couple weeks since I've given you guys and like a lot's happened. I don't even know where to start. Okay. I am still slowly getting back to being at my place, but I'm being there more often than not. I'll say that's just like this past week though, but I I'm trying to be easy on myself because in my head I keep telling myself that the breakup happened in October, but what my therapist is telling me is that I need to remind myself that no, the breakup happened in May because that's really like when like the contact was cut and like I didn't have to worry like because he was no longer living at my place. So I guess just like being easy on myself of like if I'm not, because I originally was like I need to be back there. Like in my head I was like I'll be back there mid-May, no issue. And then the first time going back there I was like, "Oh, okay, this
A
is
little bit of an issue.
yeah, I was like, this is not as easy as I thought it was gonna be. And I can't really pinpoint why, because it's not like any, like I was telling you, it's not anything like specific of like, oh my gosh, but I think it's just like the overall of knowing that like when I first moved in, it was like I've never lived there by myself. It was always with him.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's getting better and like so that happened. To help me move back there, though, I decided to rent out my guest bedroom. So that's being rented. So that's a positive. And then I also decided, let me get a job. Like, let me add on to all of these changes, although they're positive. It's still a lot to, and I had like a breakdown with Shamina like last week because I was just like, I don't know why. It's all good things, but it's just a lot. It's a lot at once. So I
So
haven't
why back up for a second? Why
okay.
did you decide to rent out your spare bedroom? Because now you finally had your space and
I don't like my space. No, I decided to rent it out because I thought someone else being in the house would help me transition and be able to like, have that at adjustment period. I don't know, but I just I don't mind being alone for like, periods, but like knowing that like I'm going to wake up and just that like the whole time I'll be living alone like I don't like that. Like I've lived by myself before twice. One time it was horrible, one time it wasn't bad at all. So, but I just think because of why I'm having to live by my own now, I don't think I'm quite ready to fully accept that, I guess to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, y'all.
And I think so. When I had first heard that from you, my initial thought was like, oh my God, why? Because you know, like for me, if anything happened to me and my current partner, when I was like living alone and had a spare bedroom, I couldn't even imagine having to live with somebody else. Like just that idea in and of itself, it's overwhelming to me. Like I like my own space, I like my alone time, I like all of these things. And I think um I don't know if I'd be able to do it. And
See,
just
now I would like to point out though, you've never lived on your own. You've always lived with someone. So you say you like your own space, but you've never lived by yourself. So I just want to put that out there because I know at one point you were like, Carly, like, you know, like you don't like to be alone. And I was like, damn, I don't. But then I was like, this bitch never been alone. So I was just like, hold up. But no, like, if you think about it, you've never lived alone. You've lived with a partner, roommates, family, you know.
you're
So
right.
at the end of the day, like
You're right. I don't know.
so look at his hair flopping his
You're right.
um
You're right. But I think I feel like at this point in my life, I would like to have that, or just being able to see like what it would be like. I didn't even consider that I've never really lived alone. I feel like since I got out of my house when I turned 18, I was like, I've lived on my own. Like I've been alone, but it hasn't been like alone in quotation marks.
and I will say that I mean everyone's different, but I will say the first time I lived alone I hated it, but the second time it was a good experience. And like ideally if everyone could have that experience, I would recommend everyone to live on their own at least once. But I just like I was talking to my mom about it, and my mom has lived alone one time in her life for 6 weeks and that was it.
Wow.
So, yeah, and like my brothers, neither of them I think have ever lived alone. They've always lived with roommates, family, or their partner. So, you know, I think it's just it's a different feeling, but it's funny because I have a close friend who she lives alone, and but she's a very like private person, so like that's her thing, you know, like she loves it, and I don't think that she could like live with like a roommate now after college and stuff. She's because I even talked to her about like possibly renting out her place, and she was like, nah, like, you know, I'm like not her, like her, because she has a guest bedroom. And she was just like, no. But like for me, I was like, the moment I had that opportunity, I was like, absolutely, like I'm posting it. So
I think
um
it's the idea of like a stranger that I don't know if I would be comfortable with. Like if it's like, you know, obviously like roommates are at college and stuff, like they were strangers and things, but I think it was like natural in that time of our lives, like your roommates with
mhm,
people you don't know, and that's like the norm. But
yeah.
I think just being older and like having some random person, I don't know, like if I would feel so uncomfortable like in my own home, because it's like, how do I act around this person? How am I supposed to be? Like I think that's my issue. And even when I lived with your parents, after the breakup, I was like, I've known you for so long, but I was still like, this isn't my house. I'm very
Mhm.
uncomfortable. Like, let me just stay in the room. And I really had to like force myself, like, be social. Like, it's okay. You can go out. So I couldn't even imagine like in my own house. Like I would feel very uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm the opposite. Like for me, just like even because I would say like as of right now, they kind of just stay in the room, which I'm like, come join me on the couch, like let's watch TV. You know, I'm down, but I understand like not everyone's like that. But for me, like even just knowing that someone else is there, I'm like, okay, like, you know, there's someone upstairs doing their thing and whatever. But yeah, I think because of the situation that's bringing me to live alone, I don't think I'm quite ready for that. And so these are like the baby steps I'm trying to take to adjust. But what was I going to say? Oh, so on top of doing all of this, like I'm realizing I don't know how to enjoy my alone time. And I've realized like what I'll do when I'm alone is just kind of like waste time, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm wasting time on social media watching shows that I've seen a million times or whatever. And so I was talking to my therapist about it because I want to be able to do things alone, but I am struggling to get that motivation to begin because in my head I'm like, "Oh, I'll wait for my mom to come over and hang out, or I'll wait for Shamina and we'll go to the store together." And so like my therapist was just saying like, start small, like start one thing a day. Like the community that I live in, I literally live right across from the community pool. So she was like, go to the pool for, the first day 10 minutes. And then the second day 15. And then, eventually you'll be there for a while. Or like one day go to the park. And I was like, or like I told her how I like to cook and bake. And I was telling you this about how like I like cooking and baking nice meals and, fun stuff. But then when it's just me, I'm like, oh no, like I'll just make something really quick because it's not worth making like a big mess. But she was just like, no, you are worth it. Like you have to. And so she was saying, like, in the beginning, because like an example she used was like going to the park and walk. And she's like, if you struggle to like get the self motivation for you to do it, she's like, in the beginning, say that you're doing it for Blue, my dog, saying like, you're going and on this walk for Blue, for her to have a walk. And then eventually like, it'll be for you, but Blue can come. So I am like, so she said a way to like get used to that is to like plan out my weeks. Like, even if it's just like, I was telling you, like, I'm going to wake up and the first thing I'm going to do is yoga, because the yoga that me and you are doing together separately is only like 25 minutes. And yet I always find an excuse that I'm not able to get it to fit it in my day. Like, oh, I did too much today. And then like, I look back and I'm like, I sat around and I watched TV for like 4 hours today, but I wasn't able to do 25 minutes of yoga.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm in this like medium of like, I'm inching forward, and I'm like the 7 changes of change or whatever. Like I'm at this place, isn't it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The stages of what? The stages of change, like contemplation, pre-contemplation.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think there's only 5.
Okay, well, I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but however many stages there are, but like I'm at the point now where I'm acknowledging that is any of this making sense? Because like I'm trying to say, like, I think before, like right after the breakup, I was just like hurt and sad. And so like my whole thing was like just to get through the day, kind of like. And so like now I'm acknowledging that I'm capable of doing that. But now I'm acknowledging that I want more. I want more than just getting through the day. So now I'm trying to add in little things every day to hopefully it become something that I don't even have to think about. Like, you know what? I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go to the park and I'm doing it for me. And like, I think my end ideal goal from this is that whatever relationship I get into next, I want to be good on my own. Does that make sense? Like, I want to have my own hobbies. Cause I was telling her, like, even like, I want to learn how to crochet, and everyone's like, that's so easy. And I'm like, I've seen YouTube tutorials, but I think I always find excuses, like I'm like battling myself of like, I want to do these things, but then I will like watch the YouTube tutorial of how to crochet. And then I'm like, oh, I can't do that. That looks really hard. And I don't even allow myself to try. Like I even was like, I want to get into jump roping, but then thinking like, ooh, I got to go outside and like jump rope for 5 minutes. Like, no, thank you. So like, I'm at
air condition.
Yeah. I'm trying to take it day by day, but, be easy on myself, but also kind of push myself a bit, like I don't want to shove myself so forward that I'm like, holy guacamole. But I'm at this point where I'm ready to kind of push myself a bit of like, all right, Carly, like go around the block 2 times with Blue instead of just real quick her going pee and then you coming in the house.
Yeah.
And I think that's, is there anything that I'm forgetting? I got a job. It's not like a ongoing forever thing, but I did that purposefully because the whole reasoning behind me quitting my initial job was because I want to do something that I love, and I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to see what it is I want to do. And based on our one episode where we talked with your supervisor of like, you know, we're these millennials who are no longer accepting what the other generations have told us. And I feel like that's like really how I feel in my heart of like, I refuse to accept that my life for the first 40 to 50 years is working 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and the weekends are the only time that I get to quote unquote enjoy my life. No, I would rather work random jobs here and there and do like kind of like a side hustle or whatever to enjoy my life. Like it's just I think the pandemic of 2020 hit me really hard, and I'm no longer doing things that don't make me happy. And I know that sometimes that's crazy to some people of like, you just up and quit your job because you weren't happy, but like it's not like I just did it out of nowhere. I thought about this for 9 months. I did look into like my financial situation because I get that you know, it's a thing that we have to think about if we're being real. But I just knew that I was at a point where I was like, I can't do this forever. This cannot be my life. And so I was just like, you know what, 2021, I am making changes and I am pursuing what makes me happy. And if that means kind of that I have to risk it for the biscuit, you know, like maybe put a little money out there more than I'm getting back in, but you know, maybe it'll even up. Like I'm willing to take that risk right now because I'm 27. I feel like life in society has told us when you're 27, you're old and you need to settle down. And like, no, I'm not.
You should be married by now. You should have kids. Like you get all the things. And it's like, bro, who even had their life together?
Ever.
Like ever
though. Yeah. But like, I just think that like this breakup and everything like made me realize like I'm still so young. I still have so much life to enjoy. And like, I don't want society telling me that I need to meet someone and settle down and have kids because people are living till their like 80s and stuff. I'm young for 27. I am so young. I'm okay. Like I was talking to a friend and she just had a baby and I was like, yeah, like honestly, like I'm cool if I don't have a kid for another like 10 or if I don't have a kid for 10 years or if I ever have a kid. And she was like 10 years, that's too late. And I'm like, no, not for me because I don't know if I even want kids. I know that my mind will change. So I'm right at this moment in time, I'm okay with not having kids. Maybe next year I want kids. I don't know, but I just am kind of like not accepting that society's telling me that I need to settle down and be married and have kids by 28 or 29. Like that's how I was thinking. And I think because I thought like that, I was allowing myself to stay in a relationship that I wasn't happy in. And I was almost going to like be with this person forever and potentially have their children. Because I remember at one point when I was going to grad school, I had brought up to them, I want a kid within a year. And now I thank God that I did not get pregnant and have kids because I can barely take care of myself, let alone, you know, like I need my 8 hours of sleep. If I don't get that, I'm barely functioning the next day. Like, sorry, you know? So, anyways, this is my rant on my update, but I'm just trying to be patient with myself. At the end of the day, I have to take it day by day. And if I end up not back at my place full time for another 2 months or whatever, I'm telling myself that that's okay because in reality, I've only been broken up for about a month, really.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really good point is that I think a lot of times when things happen to us or we go through the motions of emotions, like big emotions, then we're trying to get back to this old version of ourselves. Like, I want to get back to how I was before. I want to get back to doing this or doing that. And it's a really amazing trap that we get stuck in because that version of you, it doesn't exist anymore because now it's in this present moment, in this present time, who you are now. And so I think, kind of generalizing a little bit more is that for a lot of people, like after a breakup or, finding a new place, like we want to get back to normal. And I hear this with my clients all the time. Like, I want to feel better. I want to get back to how I used to be. And, I have this talk with them and I'm like, you can't,
Yeah.
that doesn't exist. You can't go back in the past and become that person again. If you have a time machine, maybe. So if any of our listeners have one of those, please let us know, because that would be pretty.
Let me know.
But it's about, you know, being able to figure out who you want to be now and like moving forward with that. And you can take components of like this old version of you and things that you want to be able to do, but how can you be kind of what we talked about last time, like more authentic to yourself? And
Mhm.
you know, I think a lot of people, kind of branching off of our last episode, we get stuck because of fear, like fear of the
Yeah.
unknown, fear of not having health insurance, fear of not making it, fear of failure, fear of all of these things that hold us back and keep us stagnant and stuck. And that fear is huge. And you know,
Mhm.
I had talked about in my or our last episode how one of my clients, you know, they wanted to quit their job, and I was like, I know I'm biased, but I think that you should do it, you're very unhappy. And they were like, you make it sound so easy. And I was thinking, it is, if you want it to be. It doesn't have to be this huge drawn out process, but for, you know, these different life changes, society tells us like, yes, it does. And are you
Yeah.
sure you want to be doing that? Or, you know, if
They
you,
put this guilt on you. Like society puts this guilt on you that if you're not working full time or providing or whatever, that you're doing something wrong.
right, right.
And I will say, it's funny because you like we joked about the time machine, but if I'm being honest, I don't think that I would go back because I think I had to go through this to learn, and like I know I told you, but I brought up to my friend last night that well, one, I think this breakup was one, there are several factors why it was so hard for me. One, it was my first one, it was long term, and it was just a very drawn out breakup. It didn't just we didn't break up and the next day he was out and no contact. It was like, but I was talking to my friend last night and I was like, it's funny because I can remember in my early 20s or late teens when my friends would go through a breakup and I'd be like, you don't need him, screw him. And I never knew what it felt like to go through a breakup, so I thought that that's what you should say or something like that, and, like, now that I've gone through a breakup, like, I feel like I have this newfound empathy for someone going through, like, heartbreak and a breakup, and, like, it's like, yeah, that's, like, the ideal world of, like, yeah, I know I don't need him, but that doesn't help me feel any better right now in this moment, and so, like, I will say my one friend, her aunt told her anything I say is not going to help you. It's not going to make you feel better. And I feel like that is like kind of like valid of like, and like I'm kind of going all over the place, but you were saying like all of your clients, well, not all, but most of your clients will be like, I want to get back to normal. And I think a lot of people do that and they kind of suppress these feelings because they're not fun to deal with and they can last a while. And you kind of have to go through them to get past them, if that makes sense. And so like I'm even seeing that like, in my head I'm like, "Oh, it's been so long." And like my therapist was like, "Who cares?" Like it could be because I was like, "Oh, like in my head like when I think about the breakup being in October, I'm like it's been 9 months or however long it's been." And she's like, "So what if it's been 9 months and it's still, she's like it may, everyone's timeline is different." And I think like I just I have to remind myself and I want to remind others to be like patient with yourself and kind of don't stay stagnant. Like do what you can, but know that like if it's just hitting you harder than you were expecting, that's okay. Cause again, going back to me moving back, I did not think that it was going to be like this difficult to get back into that routine, or a routine of just living at my place. And it has been. So
Yeah.
I went on a rant, but
I think, what was I going to say? Um, I know, I
no.
know. It's like on the tip of my tongue. So something about when you had said like the timeline. Oh, is that so? And I think in particular for you, and probably for a lot of people, is that there was a lot of dynamics at play in your relationship that you weren't aware of, and so now you're trying to like heal and process through that, like the emotional abuse that we talked about before, like the manipulation or the control, like when you realize that and then you're trying to, like, now with that knowledge, look back on your relationship and like make sense of those moments and those times, and like how do I how do I make sense of that? Like, how do I conceptualize that? How can I move forward so this doesn't happen again? How can I recognize those red flags? And so I think for you in particular, there's been a lot of other dynamics at play that you've had to like learn about and go through and recognize, as opposed to like, yeah, I've done this before, like, okay, we'll go through the feelings, and you know,
Mhm.
it'll be fine. And I think a lot of people, that tends to happen, is that, you know, they may or may not realize when they're in the relationship some of these other dynamics, and then when they get out of it, it is so much harder because there are other factors at play.
And I will say, I just thought about it. One thing that also has helped me is when I felt like I wasn't allowed to think of the past relationship, or it was like not a you don't want to do that, you know? And so it was almost like if I did that I felt guilty, or like, oh gosh, like I need to just cut it off and act like it didn't exist. But that was not that was not working for me. It was almost holding me back because it was like I wanted to think about it, but I felt like, no, like there's no need to. And so I felt like it was like kind of holding me back from moving forward to heal. But what I've realized and what has personally helped me is, I can't remember the exact saying, but it was pretty much like you can accept that that person has a place in your heart, but they just no longer have a place in your future. And so for me, like that has really helped me significantly because, like, yeah, we had a lot of bad times, but we had a like, you know, like I was telling my therapist, she's like, you obviously had to have some good times that you stayed. And
Right.
we did. And so, like, now when I try to think of the good times, like I just smile and I accept it and I remember it, but just know like, yeah, we had some good times, but it's just that it wasn't enough, or like he can't continue with me in the future. Like we won't work out in the future. But I think that helped me significantly because it made me feel okay to think about the past relationship. Whereas I felt like when I was talking to everyone, they were just kind of like, screw him, like you don't want contact with him. And like I don't want like contact with him, but like it was making it hard to like be like, okay, so I can't even like think about him or anything. Like, and I was like almost like baffled because I'm like, how do people do that? Like, how do people just stop thinking about someone that they were with for a significant amount of time? And then like,
They
you know, I heard that, yeah.
don't.
And then, well, that's when I heard that thing and I was like, oh, okay. So like, it's okay that I do have these memories and just smile and then I move on. I don't like, what's the word? I don't dwell on it or anything like that, but I remember and then I'm like, oh, okay, like, you know, I remember us playing catch in the backyard of my place and be like, oh, those were fun times. But then that's what they were. And that's where they'll stay, is in the past. And yeah.
Mhm. And I think a lot of our culture with breakups is very
I
rigid.
think it's toxic.
Well, yeah, toxic. It's very rigid because there is kind of this message of like, you don't have any contact, you just need to move forward, like let it go, like leave it in the past, and all of this kind of stuff. And so I think for people who um well, I think going back to my previous statement is that we may say those things of like, don't think about this person, you don't need them, like just leave it alone, like move forward with your life. But I think in reality we still do, like we still like have those thoughts, or you know, even if we tell ourselves like, no, I'm not thinking about this person, I don't need them, I don't need that, your mind will still wander and you'll still wonder, or you'll still think about that. And I think it's very hard to just like flip the switch and you're, you know, you're done.
Yeah, because I'll see like some of these people out there that like go through a breakup and then like they'll be like, the next day I'm good. And I'm like, teach me your ways because this is hard. But I think that like shoot, what was I gonna say? Like, um, it was something with the breakup, but it's just like interesting of how, yeah, like I just think that like, oh, what I was gonna say is, what, remember when I was telling you of like how I think people like apparently move on mad quick. And it's just like, but I'm over here like, there are days that I'm struggling because I'm thinking like, how, like, I don't know what's going on with him, but I just think like, how can you probably be going on with your every single day and like doing your thing? And then I'm over here like struggling to still like get myself together some days and heal. And like, it's obviously not as much as it was in the beginning, but there are some days where it hits me and I'm just like, this is hard again, it is hard again. And like, I know that they'll minimize because I've already seen them minimize, but like, I don't want to say I'm excited, but I am like looking forward to when it's like maybe like once every couple months that I'm like, oh yeah, because like now I feel like it's like once a week, once every 2 weeks maybe, but it's still, I feel like, kind of frequent. And I mean, I know that it's progress, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's kind of like how we talked about before, like with grief, like after a certain amount of time, like it becomes less and less, but then there will be like these big waves where like it hits you harder, and then like years will pass and you'll like have a thought or a memory, but the emotion has changed.
Yeah, so it's just but yeah, so I think I have been going through a lot of changes, and so but I think my biggest focus right now is to remind myself that I'm worth doing things alone and record and enjoying.
Record and record them.
I said recording because I looked up at the top corner as I was talking and I just said what I saw. But it's funny that you do say recording because I was having a debate the other day with a friend of when I bought my car. Random, but they were so convinced that I had bought it before I had actually did. But my other friend was like, why don't you just look in your pictures? And I was like, I don't take pictures like that. And I kind of want to be better at that. But I feel like, I don't know if I've ever been, I mean, when Snapchat like first came out and like I'll say my freshman years of college, I was really into Snapchat. But other than that, I feel like I'm not really big. And I feel like I'm even more trying to not be on my phone as much. Like social media apps, I set timers because my biggest thing right now is I want to be in the moment, not watching it. But I also want to have this balance because I feel like there are certain things that I want to look back on and be like, "Oh my gosh, that was a good day," but also be in the moment as well. So it's hard because like those are things, I know that was totally random and off topic, but I'm just like thinking like I don't like how much, because like I said, I do waste time on my phone and I'm trying to enjoy being alone and like being in whatever environment I'm in and enjoying that, and knowing that I'm worth it, but I also want to have like memories of it. And so that's a random thought that I'm throwing out there for everyone.
But I think it's the intention behind it, because a lot of us, we take photos to post on social media. And so it
Yeah.
takes us like out of the moment. It's like, oh, you're out to a restaurant, you get your food. It's like, oh, hang on, like nobody touched anything. Like I need to take a picture of this so I can post it to social media, as opposed to being like, wait, like this food looks amazing. Like I want to remember it and show people later on. Let me take a picture really quick. Like those two things have two totally different feels. And I totally feel you on that, because I can remember when I took that trip to London and Paris, I was very like aware. I was like, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to be posting this like wherever I'm at. But I was able to like take pictures because I wanted to look back on it. I took a lot of photos, and I'm really glad that I did that, because now I'm like, oh my God, like I remember that day, and being able to like see the things again. And my thought isn't like, wow, like I was so unfocused that I don't even remember taking this picture, because I was so worried about how it was going to look on social media and being able to post it. And so I think, maybe the intention behind it can start changing. It's like you're doing this for yourself to like have this like catalog of like memories and getting back into things, instead of just worrying about what it'll look like on social media.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you make because I don't think I've ever been tech savvy or like big in social media. So I don't like how people like edit their pictures. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I feel like an old woman when it comes to social media because I'm like, I don't know. And I call you half the time and I'm like, Shameen, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, because I think a part of me also, I don't want to admit it, but a part of me also refuses to learn because I don't want to be sucked into that. I don't think that I'm that type of person. I don't know. But I'm just like, I don't want to be so obsessed with, I mean, I barely post on social media. I think these past few months is the most I've ever, and it's just for this podcast because I know that like getting this out and the word out of what we're doing is really important to me. But even sometimes I feel like I'm slacking on my end with the social media, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't even want to go on social media today. I'm just like, I don't, because I just feel like it's all like, it's just social media has transformed so much from what it used to be. And it's either people are, I mean, this isn't always the case, but I feel like it's either people flaunting about the amazing quote unquote life they have, or they're like venting about how awful something is. And it's just like, I feel like sometimes it like whiplashes me and I'm just like, I cannot do this. So I will say, like, I know some days I'm just like, oh, I know Shamina has been posting and I know I need to get out there, but I just don't have the energy to get on social media today.
Yeah, no, I feel that. And that's how I felt about TikTok was I did not download and create a TikTok because I know like my clients, they'll tell me, I'm like, oh, like, what did you do, on this day? Or like, what did you do for like self-care? And they're like, I scroll on TikTok for like 2 to 3 hours. And in the beginning, I'm like, how can you possibly scroll on social media for 2 to 3 hours? Like, it's a long ass time. And then now I'm like, oh, I know how because I'm doing that. And so when we created the TikTok for our podcast, I find myself now like being on there and I have to like set a limit and I'll look at the time and I'm like, okay, you have to get off at this time because otherwise I just get like lost in this vortex of like scrolling and scrolling. And I used to do it on Instagram too. And so it's just like this mindless activity. And even last night I was going to sleep and my partner was in the room playing a video game and he had looked at me and he was like, no scrolling, be mindful, sit with your thoughts and go to sleep. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And then I picked up my phone and I started scrolling. But in my head I was like, I should limit this, I should get off this, I should sit with my thoughts. And I did eventually. I was able to like tone it down to when I usually do. But I was like, damn, you're right. You're calling me out. And I didn't listen.
Well, it's funny because that's literally how I used to be is I got sucked into that TikTok train early on. And it's crazy how quickly an hour goes by when you're scrolling, pinkies up. And then it's so crazy how like when you're like doing something that's good for you, but it's like, oh my God, it's only been 2 minutes. And so like I literally on my phone,
We lost Carly. Internet is temporarily unavailable at the moment. Okay, now we're back. We lost you there. We heard you were on your phone and then you froze and we can hear you.
Well, I was on my phone. I don't know how I stumbled across it in settings or something that I could set limits on apps. And so I literally have like an hour limit set on TikTok and like a 30 and 40-minute set on like Instagram and Facebook because I was like your clients. I would be on the couch like, oh, I'm just gonna watch 2. And then it's like 3 hours later and I'm like, oh my God, I literally have been on the couch for 3 hours staring into my phone. And I'm like, I feel like a freaking robot. So
I'll pick up my phone when there's like a commercial on the TV, which is amazing that like we've grown up with commercials and watching commercials. And now like, with all of these streaming platforms, you either pay more so you don't have commercials or they're like 90 seconds and that's it. But I hate them so much and I don't want to watch them because I'm uninterested that I will just scroll on my phone during the commercials each and every time. And I have to like challenge myself of like, put your phone down, watch the damn commercial, or like mute it, or just sit here for a second. Or I've even had sometimes where I'll pause my show when it comes back on because I'm too fixated on scrolling, but I can't miss my show. And so that's like a big sign to me. I'm like, you need to totally get off your phone right now.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I was gonna say I'll do something like that of like, oh, it's a commercial. I'm just gonna scroll until the show comes back on. And then all of a sudden I look and the show is on and it's about to be a commercial again. And I'm like, damn it. I'm like, I got so sucked into this. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'm realizing that like I need to do more for me that's like helping me be okay and enjoying my alone time. So like going swimming or reading a book or walking blue at the park instead of just to go pee real quick and coming back home. Like that takes up time that I could have been using on my phone. So like let me spend that time outside or whatever and not be on my phone as much because at the end of the day we have 12 hours in the day and you choose how you're going to spend it. So I've been trying to think of it like that of like, and I started it today this morning. I woke up, I did yoga because I knew if I didn't do it early on in the morning, I would find an excuse as to why I couldn't do it later on in the day. And it's a 25 freaking minute video. It's not long. And then like just other, I mean, my day didn't go exactly how I wanted today because I ended up having to drive home to my parents, but instead of just sitting on my phone waiting for us to record, I went out and I helped my mom clean her car and, just did stuff like that. So I'm trying to be more intentional of how I'm spending my time and not, just being lazy. That's how I'm like, I feel like I've gotten so lazy and it's like I could choose to sit on the couch and scroll or I could go in the pool and it's such an inconvenience to put my bathing suit on and I'm just like that is so sad.
No, I totally feel that. And I would reframe lazy as comfortable because
Yeah.
you're comfortable doing those things, and that there is also a balance because we want to be mindful of how we spend our time, but there will be days where like we don't have the energy or we just sit and we scroll or we watch TV. And I think that's okay, like to have both
Oh
of them
yeah.
and to be comfortable. But I totally feel that because my partner will kind of like want attention from me. And I think it's like this big inconvenience that like I have to put my phone down and like pay attention to you, or I have to pause my show and like interact with you as a person. And he gets very upset and angry. And, I'm trying to be more mindful of like recognizing why. Like that is so ridiculous that I think that spending time with my partner is this huge inconvenience and I would rather be engrossed in the show. And I'm trying to kind of tell myself like that will be there. That will stay on that streaming platform, that will stay wherever it is. But like this moment won't. And this
Yeah.
interaction won't. And so how can I be more intentional about like having that personal experience instead of like, I know for me, I watch shows or I go on social media to like escape reality and just like focus and be somewhere else. Not that I dissociate or anything like that. Like I want to like get out of my life and I hate my life so much, but it's just a way for me to unwind and kind of be like in
Yeah.
this fantasy world. And so I'm trying to I'm trying to make my life and make these decisions so I don't feel like I need to escape as much, and that I'm more open to these experiences now instead of feeling so overwhelmed or so stressed out that I need to do something else to get away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And I think it's funny that you said that because I think what I'm trying to unlearn is I think with my past relationship, my escape was watching my comfort shows or scrolling on social media. And so I'm just immediately turning to that because I'm still like kind of unlearning all of these things of like, okay, that's not my life anymore and I can go in the pool and I can swim and enjoy the pool for the day and it's not like an exhausting task. So I think I'm slowly starting to learn that and I think that's why like my therapist made a good point of like, even if it's just like starting off just doing one thing a day by yourself that is for you that's not something you would typically do like again like sitting by the pool for because that was another thing is I always, so before when I was in the relationship, when I would do things on my own, it was almost in spite of my ex because he wouldn't, I would want him to do it with me and he wouldn't. So it was like, I'm going to do it on my own and I'm going to show you that I'm having a good time. So I feel like now I'm having to do these things on my own to just genuinely enjoy doing them on my own and have that satisfaction. I'm still trying to learn that because for a while it was like I'm doing this and and that's what's crazy is I did so much on my own before, but just why I did it before is not why I want to do it now. Like I want to do things alone now because I truly enjoy doing these things, not because I asked someone to do it and they said no, so now I'm going to do it on my own and show them that it's a good time.
Mhm. And I
So,
think something that may be helpful for you is if you're like building off of the things that you already do. So like you already take Blue out for walks because you have to. And so it's like, okay, I'm already doing this. So let's go in a new location. So it's like a longer walk. Or if you go to like the mailbox every day, okay, so I'm gonna go to the mailbox and then I'm gonna sit by the pool.
I don't go to the mailbox. I'm one of those people. I go maybe once a week. I'm bad. I need to check it more.
You get my idea though, like build
Yes.
the things that you already do, or like when you go to the grocery store, like maybe you pick up ingredients for one meal that week where it's like a big meal that you're doing for yourself. And it's hard as hell to cook by yourself though, like for yourself for real. So I totally feel you on that.
Well, I've never had, I don't want to say I've never, because I have lived by myself, but I never learned how to cook like solo amounts of food. So I always end up with like a week's worth of leftovers. And after like day two, I'm like, I'm done with this. So I will say like absolutely yes, I agree with you. And also like one thing that my therapist was saying, she was like, have a dedicated movie night for yourself with like popcorn and you put your phone away and you don't have distractions and you literally just enjoy this movie night that you planned for yourself with popcorn or whatever. But um um what was the last thing you said that I was just like, oh
Mailbox,
no, not the mailbox. Dang flabbit. I can't.
eating, like making a meal.
Oh yeah. So one of the this is my that's my attention span. One of the things also that I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find a cool recipe on Pinterest. And like you kind of said, like once a week or whatever, I'll go to the grocery store, get these ingredients for like a nice little enjoy myself and not reward. I don't want to say I'm rewarding myself, but I'm enjoying myself and I'm showing myself love, you know? So I think something like that. But yeah, definitely. It's just, yeah, because with there's a park like walking 5 minutes from me.
Yeah.
So I could take Blue there. And I've even said, like, I'll drive there and me and Blue will walk around it. And then slowly I'll build up to where I'll walk there and we'll walk around it. But I think in the beginning, like, let me just drive there. We'll walk around. Because I've noticed that my initial thought is like, let me just take Blue out to go pee. But lately I've been going around the block. And then I noticed once I go around the block, I'm like, oh, I can go longer. So yeah, it's just I was telling my friend I want to slowly push myself to do like some uncomfortable things, but also I don't want to do it too much where I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know?
Yeah. And I think I was actually just recently talking to somebody who is a wellness coach, I think is their title, but they were telling me how there's actually a lot of research out there how when we try to start new habits, I want to say it's like I don't know if it's like 30 days or 3 weeks. Like I think it's 3 weeks to break a habit. I can't remember. Or, like 30 days to start some new habit, some number that we have in our minds. But it's actually a longer time process. And they were like, it's closer to like 70 days to establish a new habit. And I was like, wow, like I never heard of that before. But it makes
Great.
complete sense because I mean, if you think about it, like we do, like we're doing like the 30-day yoga challenge. And it's like, okay, great. Like after the 30 days, will we probably do it again? Probably not.
Yeah.
Maybe. But it's the longer you're able to do it and the more consistent, the easier it becomes. And so that made a lot of sense to me. And I was really able to connect with that because we're very, I think, societally, I don't know if that's a word, but it is now, societally based on short term. Like I want
Yeah.
this change now. I want to feel better now. I want this to happen now. I want to be a millionaire tomorrow. And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves in all aspects of our lives because it's hard, and we are very much conditioned to want like that instant gratification, or I instantly want to feel better, or I want this to be back to normal, or blah 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 blah. But practicing like that patience and that like self-compassion or self-love, and recognizing that like it's the journey that's like really helpful. And so you can look back and be like, yeah, this took me like 3 months to be able to implement and do, but now look, like this is so much more consistent and I really enjoy this, as opposed to like, I want this fixed now and I want to feel better now. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, I like that. But ask my mom, I'm the most impatient person ever. I want something right now. And my mom literally just yelled at me earlier today because she was like, geez, give me a minute. And I was just like, oh, okay. But I know that I'm impatient, but I think I like hearing that too, because absolutely, like I think hearing it, even though it's like, oh God, 70 days, but it's like, okay, like that makes sense. Like, and it's funny because you say like we want stuff right away, but realizing like I think knowing that the journey is necessary and it's helpful and helps us, like I literally have this journal that I have been writing in since October of my feelings, and I'm trying to keep up with it because to me, and I don't know if I saw you post it or something, but it was something like I am writing down these pages so that my kids and grandkids can see that like heartache turns into beauty. And like that just hit me because I was just like I just got chills because I was like, not only for myself, but I eventually, like if I do have a family, like I want them to read that so that if anything ever happens, like they can be like, oh dang, like grandma Carly or mom, she went through it, but look at what her life turned into, because I know that it'll be something great.
Yeah. And I think I was being that posted it, but it was like I write my pain or my feelings in ink, so my family knows that like pain can turn into beauty, as opposed
Yes.
to erase it and change it and reframe it. Um, and I resonated with that because I posted. I was like, I like this, share.
I swear everything you post, I think you're posting it for me. I'm like, Shamina posted that because she knew I needed to see that or something.
Sometimes honestly, sometimes I do. I was like, this sounds like so much like Carly, and she's gonna look at this and it's gonna make her day. Or other times I'm like, this is so like where I'm at right now. Like I need to post this. So you are correct, because sometimes my intention is for you to see it inadvertently without telling you.
It's so funny because I think like you're like a favorite person. So like when I go on Facebook, you're like one of the first people, like I'll see your posts and stuff. And I'm just like, love, care, or whatever. Cause I'm like, she did that for me.
I know, I'll look at my notifications. It's like 10 notifications. I'm like, oh my God. And it's like, Carly liked this. Carly hearted that. Carly commented on this. So I'm like, damn girl, like, okay.
You hit me in the feels, man. But no. So I think I gave you guys an update and then we kind of went off on
Living in the moment and doing
yeah.
authentic for yourself that feel good for you. And I think there's definitely a lot more to come on this topic, I think from Carly's perspective, but also from my perspective, that I'm very excited to be able to share with you guys in some upcoming episodes, kind of about my journey with this change in mindset, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, and I'll say if anything, like kind of challenge yourself a little bit, even if like I feel like sometimes we think challenges have to be these huge things, but like a challenge can be as simple as like when you wake up, make your bed. Like that's a challenge, or even something smaller than that. Like if you immediately look at your phone, don't wait 5 minutes. And obviously you won't know exactly if it's been 5 minutes, but you can kind of get an idea. And those are challenges that are tiny but could make a difference. And like Shamina said, if you consistently do it, soon you'll not even realize that you're not grabbing your phone first thing. Like I try to make a point to not touch my phone like immediately in the morning. Like sometimes I do because like I'll see a notification go off, but for the most part I try not to. Shamina over here puts her phone on freaking do not disturb. And I have been having to call her lately to tell her about my vivid dreams, and she doesn't answer. And then I forget by the time she freaking answers.
That's setting boundaries, because I know that Carly will call me and wake me up. So I turn my phone on Do Not Disturb, and then I open it in the morning. 9 times out of 10, the first thing that I see is this call from Carly or a text message from Carly.
It's so true. But like lately I even had one that I still haven't told Shamina about today that I have to tell her, but I've been just having these vivid dreams, and like one was about Shamina. So I was like, I have to tell her. And then I'll be like, hi, you've reached Shamina. And I'm just like, oh, this girl, she puts me straight to voicemail.
I need my sleep. I need my peace and my sleep.
You sleep too late.
Well, when you set your own schedule and your own hours, then you can enjoy such things as sleeping in.
I know. One day I'll have that freedom.
At 6 o'clock in the morning, so that's why I went to bed. But we have a question for all of you.
Are you feeling full yet?
Are you?
Are you?
If not, this. How in your life can you start to make these small changes and being more mindful of how you're spending your time? Because we are so caught up in multitasking and being engrossed in our social media, as Carly looks down at her phone right now.
I was getting our phone number. I was like, oh no, unless you have it.
But she demonstrates the point is that we're always attached to our phones. Like we go with them, well, they go with us wherever, but we also go with them. So how can you start being more mindful about the time that you spend and being able to do things that you enjoy?
That was so rude.
It was perfect. It was perfect timing.
Anyways, follow up, leave your comments, leave your feedback. Our email is emotionfulpod@gmail.com, and our phone number is 813-444-3482. I always get confused because there's so many fours, so I always have to look down to she over here trying to call me out. Also, you know, we all have those social medias, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. Subscribe.
Yes.
Like and share.
Subscribe and share. Please, please, please. We would appreciate the continued support.
Yes, and I know we brought it up a few episodes ago, but we do have something brewing that a little sneak peek if you look over. But yeah, so just we are trying to expand. Look at her acting all.
For those of you listening, tune into YouTube to see what I'm actually doing and what
yeah, we're not gonna say.
So we've got some exciting goodies in the works for you guys that we are trying to finalize to be able to give out to our listeners and
yes,
our brand.
Yeah, and guess I don't know if I cut you off if it was able to pick that up, but yeah, you know, just show your love for your girls on Emotionful Podcast. All right. I got too much energy.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in routinely.
Bye.
Bye.